One great drill where I think a lot of athletes don't really emphasize good mechanics is putting paddles on, and I'm a real stickler for proper mechanics when you are using the paddles and not just getting lazy and leaning on that front of your stroke. I'm Dave Scott, and I've got a few paddles in front of me. I want to show you these agility paddles by Finis, and I like these because they have a nice big broad surface area. The contour of your hand is really ideal. We've got a little thumb slot here, and then I've also got the Freestyler paddles as well, and these are my own little set that I have here. So these are really nice paddles because you're going to feel as though you have a little more length on the front end of your stroke. So we can do freestyle with the paddles, and the most important cue on that freestyle is to get a nice high elbow set. So if your hands linger a tad longer in the front, there's two things. Before the elbow set, think about an eyeball on your elbow, and that eyeball on your elbow is looking out towards the side wall. That's really key. If I drop my elbow down like that, then my hand or my wrist joint line is higher than my elbow. And I'm showing a pretty dramatic drop right now, but I can get it in this position here. Second thing is I want my wrist in neutral, so I bring it up into that position. So when you have the paddles on, you can really isolate that front end of your stroke and then also the finish as well. But I start with the front end. One other crazy thing I want you to try is to try a paddle, like my Freestyle paddle, and also try an agility paddle. So you have different ones. And I mismatch my team's paddle usage where we put one funny one on, and all of a sudden they said, gee, that feels really unusual. Your core is activated when you're doing that. Your hand sensitivity is activated when you're doing that. But just start off right now with Freestyle with paddles on. And I want you to take a look at this ATV video because it'll go through some of the real cues that I've defined, but you'll be able to see this in water. Take a look. So we're going to do paddle freestyle. And we've got you tethered, we've got you swimming downstream. So why the paddles? The paddles are really advantageous because you can work on a couple things. One is that high elbow set on the front end. So when your hand's out in front and you put a little bit of pressure on the entire surface of the paddle, you can pop that elbow up, and I keep using the reference, your eyeball and your elbows looking out towards that side wall. And we never want to feel like we lead with that elbow pulling back. So show an incorrect stroke where you're dropping that elbow down. That's what we don't want to do. So you have to make sure that the pressure is even, but once your hand is underneath your shoulder, you can really think about opposite hands, 5 strokes with your left hand and 5 with your right, where you release the pressure on your fingertips. If we have too much pressure, then you get your wrist ahead of your joint line. It looks something like that, and then you're in trouble. So on the finish, the very end, the wrist hyperextends at the end. Okay. So we can go a pretty slow stroke, and it's good for the beginner and the competitive swimmer. So let's go ahead and try this. And stop. You know, one of the interesting things when you're going slow like this, and obviously we can go slowly with the ATV and tethered in like this, is that you want to make sure that your trajectory when you put your hand in doesn't go straight down. So in other words, when a hand hits the water, we want to keep it relatively shallow, but that hand, wrist joint line, should still be just slightly deeper. So one of the cues is that it's about 4 to 8 inches below the surface out in front. And the tendency with your stroke, it's good, but it's still dive bombing down a little bit deep. Keep it shallower on the front end, both hands, okay?
All right.